KMOX News Time 7:51. It's a wrap for the Republican National Convention. Joining us this morning, Sagar Meghani, AP National Security Correspondent on the Quiver River Electric Cooperative guest line. Sagar, I've heard a lot of commentators talk about the tone of the speech last night, the length of the speech. I guess the question for voters is, was it presidential?
Yeah, that is the big question now, Megan. It'll be interesting to see what kind of bump the Republicans and specifically Donald Trump get out of this. It was very long, an hour and 15 minutes, and the tone was much darker than you usually see at these convention nominating speeches. It was very much things are wrong with the country. It's a very dire state of affairs. And Donald Trump says he knows the system better than anybody. He's the only one who can fix it. So if voters wanted to hear optimism, that's not what they got last night. If they wanted to hear someone lay out some issues and say he's going to solve them, then last night was for them. But like we've seen throughout the Trump campaign, he made a lot of promises, but gave no specific policy details on how he's going to accomplish anything. So I'm not sure if what people heard last night would be enough to change anybody's mind, perhaps, and put them in the Trump camp.
Sagar Meghani joining us from Cleveland. And so in the arena, there really were not as many of those big applause, rousing applause lines as you might have from a convention speech, but it seemed like a lot of booing lines eliciting a negative reaction from the crowd, talking about Hillary Clinton, et cetera. So what was the mood like in the arena, both during and after the speech?
Well, it kind of followed the theme of the whole week, Michael. There was as much, if not more, bashing of Hillary Clinton than there was backing of Donald Trump and playing up his own record and his own plans. And those are always going to be applause, or in this case, boo lines. You did get a lot of those lock her up chants like we heard all week. And at one point, Trump actually physically waved that off and said, how about we defeat her in November instead? So, again, a lot of this was just going after her, blaming her for the problems, tying her in with President Obama. And that seemed to be what folks really wanted to hear this week. Every speaker who mentioned Clinton's name, the boos started ringing down. There was some enthusiastic applause in some cases. The section we were sitting in had people jumping up out of their seats every few minutes to cheer. But you're right. It wasn't that rousing type of soaring rhetoric speech that we ordinarily hear every 4 years.
Talking about what happened inside, but also what happened outside the convention. There has to be a sigh of relief for organizers in Cleveland that incidents outside were pretty well contained and quiet.
Yeah, there was that big fear, Megan, that there was going to be a lot of violence, that these protesters were going to show up en masse, that there were going to be a lot of confrontations with police. And frankly, you have to give a lot of credit to the Cleveland Police Department and the Secret Service. I mean, I work in Washington, and I don't know that I've ever seen as much Secret Service in one place as I have here this week. There were protests, there were some confrontations, but they only had to make about 24 arrests. There were none of those really big things where you saw tear gas fired or big physical violent confrontations. So the worst-case scenario absolutely did not play out here, and credit to the Cleveland Police for that.
Well, Sagar, we thank you so much for joining us all this week and giving us the scoop on what's been going on in Cleveland.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you.
That's AP correspondent Sagar Meghani joining us from the Republican National Convention site in Cleveland.